Hello, everyone. Welcome to our NITRO workshop on dealing with large lists in SharePoint. So this might be a problem you've come across in the past, and so hopefully you'll get something out of this to help deal with managing lots of items in one SharePoint list. So again, give another minute or so for folks to join up. Looks like a few stragglers popping in. So welcome to the webinar, to the workshop. Thanks for joining today. My name is James Restivo with Canyon. Been here, this is actually almost 10 years now. So been here for a while, and wanted to, been doing these workshops. I think a lot of you have been on these before. Some of you look like you're new to joining these, so that's great. Welcome. And just a couple things I want to point out in the Go to Webinar panel, there is a questions box. And at any point during the webinar, if you want to go ahead and pop in a question, go ahead and do that at any time. And I'll go ahead and try to get to it during the course of the workshop. If I don't get to it, then I will follow up with you afterwards. So feel free to pop in a question at any point in time, and we'll get to it. So again, James Restivo, Canyon Software. Thanks for joining our workshop on dealing with large lists in SharePoint. So just a real quick primer of what that's all about. I'm sure a number of you have experienced it. If you've used SharePoint for any length of time, then you've certainly come across the list view threshold error, something like what you see on my screen right now. And what happens is the list view itself is trying to pull more than 5,000 items back from the list that you have. Now, Microsoft, of course, tells you that you can have 30 million items, I think, in a SharePoint list, something like that, 30 million items, and some millions of documents based on how, of course, it depends on how big the documents are. There are some size limitations, but if you're doing items in a SharePoint list, it can be 30 million, and that's a lot. but the SQL queries that are done on the back end to pull back those list views are capped at 5,000, and that's where you're going to run into this error in a couple different places. And you'll see this you might see it in NITRO Forms, you might see it in just using SharePoint. This is a standard view. They can't really tell right now, but this is a standard SharePoint list view of all items that we're looking at. And it's telling me it can't pull back the information because guess what? It's over 5,000. So how do we do that? So there are a couple different ways we can do it with standard SharePoint functions. I'll show you those first. And then I'll show you some ways to deal with it from the NITRO perspective if you're dealing with lookup lists or lookup field on a form or an associated items list. That sometimes you get that error if you do an associated items lookup and you see 5,000 items in the list, and of course there might only be some subset, 10, 5, however many actually associated with it. And I'm talking about like if you're using time tracking or task management, if you have a task rolling up to a parent project and that task list itself might be over 5,000, which might impact the form and what you can see. And I'll show you that as well as what that error looks like in different ways you can deal with it. Most of it really centers around this whole concept of indexing, and that's something that SharePoint offers out of the box. So I'll kind of show you what that looks like and how to do the indexing. And there are some limitations there, but I'll walk through that. And then we'll talk about some of the forms and some of the stuff we can use with NITRO to help get around these limitations. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So I've got here a list that is over 5,000. It's trying to see all items, but we can't do it. So the only way we can get around this is to create filters on the view. But to first create filters on the view, we want to first get less than 5,000 items in an indexed column. So let's go ahead and create an index, and we're going to do this. And this is going to be from the modern UI of SharePoint Online. A lot of all these options are available in the classic mode as well. And then you'll have these options in on-premises, though also on-premises, you can always go to your farm or go to your server admin and farm admin and have them increase the threshold. It could be 10, 20,000. Not always recommended because it does impact performance, but Microsoft from the SharePoint Online Office 365 world has capped it 5,000. I've heard going back 5, 6, 7 years now that they were talking about increasing it. They never have. Hasn't happened. It's been the better part of a decade. It hasn't happened. I don't know if it ever will. So we can go ahead and create some workarounds here to make this work for us. So the first thing you want to do is go to the list settings page where you're going to see how many items you have and what your list view threshold is. Like I said, if you're on premises, that might be a little higher because your admins might have made it higher. But then if you're getting the threshold area, it means you definitely have more items than whatever that threshold is. So the first thing you're going to want to do is index columns. And we can do that. Let's see, I think we need to go to advanced settings and allow for indexing. Or actually, no, I'm sorry. We go to the bottom here. Yeah, index columns. So you go scroll down your list of columns in the list settings page, you'll see some options at the bottom, and one of them is index columns. So we're gonna pop that open. And you'll see there are a couple that I think these are kind of what we do out of the box for some lists that have NITRO forms applied to them. And you will see that there's a maximum of 20 indices on the list. So you can run into that if you may not need to have very many, but you can create up to 20 indices on the list. And we're going to create a new index. And so when you create the new index, when you create an index on a column, what you're going to want to think about is which column do you want to filter on? Because ultimately, to see items in your list, you're going to need to filter your views. And to filter your views when you're over 5,000 or whatever the threshold is, you're going to want to use a field that you're going to naturally filter on, or at least are okay with filtering on. And in some cases, that could be, well, right here we see assign to as an option as the one that comes up. Of course, it's alphabetically first. That's just what pops in there. But you might want to filter on something like created by, or created, actually, not even created by, but created, which is when the ticket or when the item was actually created. So you can create these buckets of time spans where you have items created 6 months ago, items created more than 90 days ago, or items created in the last 90 days. And you may see this with some of our out-of-the-box applications. We have a pre-configured, of course, we do some indexing pre-configured, but we also have some pre-configured filtering. And we've gotten this question from some of our customers: how do I see items that are from more than 3 months ago? Because usually what we do is we'll put a 90-day filter in there on the created field to limit limit your exposure to that list view threshold issue, right? If you're only looking back 90 days, then you're typically not going to go over that 5,000 threshold. Some cases, some people do. They might only have to look at a week at a time. That's okay. But most of the time we have that 90-day out of the box threshold. So if you ever need to change that, you can go into list views and change it. I'll show you where to set it up, and you can go to the same place to change it in our tool. But we're going to do it on created. And then we can also do a secondary index, but usually one's enough. And we're going to create that index. So we can create the index there. It's going to take a minute to apply, and just takes a second, and there it is. Now, what we can do once we create that index is create our filtered views on the list. And so we go back to settings, and if you scroll down on your list settings all the way to the bottom, there's the views that you have on the list. This one doesn't have very many. We're going to create a view. And we're going to key off of, well, we're just going to key off the all items view. That's fine. Let's just do that. And we can do all items, for last 6 months, items last 6 months, items last 6 months. Okay, so we can do that. And then what we can do is create a filter. So you're going to scroll down to your filter option, and we're going to show items where the following is true, and that's going to be where created. And you'll see that now you have a subset of your columns up here called index columns, and that's what you can key off of. And then you can do it where it's greater than or equal to, and then you can do a filter like today minus 180. So that's going to go back 180 days from today and give me everything where the date is greater than 180 from today, or 180 days minus today, or earlier than today, and just give me the last 6 months of data. Now, I actually created all these items right ahead of this webinar, so this isn't going to work, but this is how you would typically do it on the created column. So I'm going to go back and do it a slightly different way, but just to go ahead and create that. You can do that. Mine's not going to work because, oh, look at that, it actually did work. Hey. Items last, so it must have had something, I don't know, maybe there's a few items created more than 6 months ago and got me just under that threshold, but there we go. Items last 6 months, now you get your view. I actually created everything today, so everything is, I'm going to use this date reported, so we can use that same kind of situation. Go to list settings, go to our indexed columns down here. Oh, see, look at that. It automatically created the date report. That's interesting. I guess so there's some artificial intelligence going on here. I didn't realize it was even going to do that. That's pretty cool. So it actually automatically created a filter or an index for me on this list. So that's pretty interesting. I've actually not seen that before. So that's pretty cool. And now items last 6 months, we can come in here, we can edit this view, we could key off of date reported instead of created. And it's going to give you the same thing essentially. Same idea. You're going to be able to have a filtered list of your items, and then you can go and create additional views as needed. So you get different time periods, 6 months at a time, a year at a time, however you want to do it. You can do it based on that. Now you also have other options. So you might have assign to as an option. In a lot of cases, if you're running like a tickets list, for instance, you're going to have items that are closed out. You don't necessarily need to see those. You're going to have a bunch of open items views. If you have more than 5,000 items in your open items, well, that's, that may be possible, but you may want to filter on assign to as an option, because I think it'd be pretty unusual to have more than 5,000 tickets assigned to one person that are still open. But that's, I guess it depends on the scenario. But you could do a filter or an index on the assign to as well. And you can really do it on any of the columns here, whatever is going to make the most sense for you for filtering, but it's really straightforward, really simple. Just walk through it again, list settings, scroll down to index columns, and you can create your indices from here. And you see there's 4, we can have up to 20. So whatever columns you're going to be filtering on, go ahead and use that to your advantage. So that's going to filter your views and allow you to pull up those items. Now, let's say you're in this view, you're over here in this issue tracker list, and you want to, you're gonna have this drop down here of all your views, and maybe you have a lot of different views that you have in place that you want to deal with. There's going to be now not just all these views, but maybe the time-bound views added into it. So it could get to be a lengthy list of views. And one of the ways we do that with the NITRO aspect is that we can use a list view web part to just show the views that we want to show. And we can also use a query aspect of it to just pull back certain items based on whatever that query pulls back. So that's another way to do it. And you can create multiple views within the same web part. So if we went to our NITRO apps, open up our list view web part once this comes up. And of course, it always takes a minute when you first click on it. But once we get here, I'll open up the Croquet list view, and then what we can do is put some multiple views in that one list view web part, and then pop that onto a page, right? So we go in here, we create a new list view. So within this configuration, we can set multiple views. So we do issue tracker just as our title. We're going to get items from that issue tracker list, and we're going to create our different views. So now I can create that view, which is items last 6 months, okay? And I can do a new view, which could be a query. Let's say, oh, you know what, I don't have that view, but you know what, I'm just going to create a query, and that's going to be enough for me. And we're going to create one items prior to 6 months. And of course, we have to put in the items we want to see there. So just see, item link to title edit menu. We'll do that one. We just have to go through and decide which things we want to see, status, assigned to, different things that we might want to see in that view. We can go ahead and put those in. I'll just leave it like that. I add some conditions where created, well, in this case, date reported is less than or equal to. And now we have to do a calculation of some sort. And let's see, I think I can use the today function. Today minus 180. So that's going to give me prior to now. So it's less than or equal instead of greater than or equal to. So that's going to be the difference there. The view has greater than, this has less than. So that's going to create that separation of views in the query versus the ones that are just coming in the last 6 months. And then we can save those settings. And once we have that, we can put it onto a page. And let's put it onto, let's put it on the home page. Edit that. Add the list view. Edit this web part. choose the list view I just configured. And if we ever need to change it, we can do that. And just put in issue tracker and publish. Now, of course, if you're in the classic mode, there's another option in the list view web part to, let me show you what that looks like. If you're in classic mode or if you're on premises in 2013, 2016, you're going to want to use the other option here rather than directly adding it to the page in the modern view. What you can do is add it to the page from the settings here, this add list view to pages and site. So that's going to be for your classic pages. Modern, like you just saw, just add it directly. But we're going to, got to find out where our page is and then add it. Or I'm not finding it. A home. Okay, so it's, I guess it's just a home page. You have to find where it is. But essentially find where it is. Maybe it's documents, style library, form templates. All right, I'm not sure why I'm not finding it, but that's okay. You can, so you select your page from your list, whichever library, and then you just go ahead and add whatever web part you've configured onto that page. So that's how you do it in classic mode. But you see, if I come back to the home page, here's my list of items last 6 months. Now I have the drop down right there, items last prior to 6 months. And so it's going to give me a different view, which is not pulling up those items. That's okay. And then you have your limited selection of views over here. So this gives you another way, and then you can change this to tabbing rather than drop downs, but it gives you another way to break up your views and see them in one place all together like this. So you can do but it is going to show them separately. So you have items last 6 months, so they'll be separated out, but you still can look at everything when you need to. So okay, so that's that. And then so there's going to be beyond the list views, there's going to be some issues, and we'll get into more list views and a few other web places in NITRO where this comes into play. But I want to go back and show you from the forms perspective what happens and some of the ways we have to get around it. So I've created a NITRO form over here. I've actually attached our issue tracker to a new list called event itinerary, a different list called event itinerary, and added a couple things. So I've added it as an associated item where I'm getting an error here, and then I've added it as a lookup, which could potentially cause an error. I'm going to make sure this is published and reset the cache. I'm going to go back over here to the page. I'm going to bring up event itinerary. And there's no items here, but I'll create a new item and you'll see what happens. So this is not loading anything because it's over 5,000, right? So there's gonna be over 5,000, somehow it doesn't load anything. Actually, it doesn't even give me an error, it just doesn't load them in. And then over here on the related items, the associated items, it's giving me an error and tells you exactly how to fix it, which is pretty nice. It's that you need to index a column, and the column is going to be a related event because that's going to be the connection between that associated list and this list is, there's a related event lookup on the issue tracker list. So what we need to do to fix this part is we go back to our issue tracker list. And now we go back to our indexing. And let's go to index columns and create a new one, and we're going to do it on that related event field. So now we create a new index. It's going to take a second to create that. That's fine. And now we can go back to our events, event tracker. I think it's events here. Nope, not that one. Let's get back home. Event itinerary, there it goes. And now we're going to create a new one here. And in this case, we don't have to clear the cache because that was a SharePoint configuration we changed and not a NITRO configuration. So there it is. Now it works. Now you can see those related issues connected to this event, which there are none at the moment, but that's, now we get rid of that error that would prevent us from even adding or associating anything to it. Now, what about related issues? So you can see here it's got a it does have a drop down. It's pointing to, if I look at this, it should be pointing to that issue tracker list if I set this up correctly ahead of time, which I believe I did. Yes, it's looking at that issue tracker list. And now we can select a view, which is going to potentially limit things. So we can do an all items view, we can do last 6 months, but let's say we want to do all items, but now we can actually do some things on this to make sure we don't load all the items at once. And I think our NITRO form is just preventing it from being loaded because it's over 5,000. It could stop that form from loading entirely. So what you want to do, and well, you have a couple different options. You can enable a search. And of course, if we're looking up to a list over 5,000, we don't want to load those items because again, that could impact our performance and our ability to actually open the form. And then we can, a kind of new feature here, which is kind of neat, you can have different status fields. So I'll show you what that looks like. It's actually kind of neat. Where when we do the search, we can pull up different things about the items that we're searching. Let's do those two. And see, there's also a delay, or if we don't do if we uncheck that one, we can do a delay instead of a not loading at all. But in this case, because we have for the 5,000, I want to go ahead and do a do not look up, and then we just go ahead and do a search on it. Hit OK. And I think we do preview. It should work. Yeah, so now it's not going to load anything here, so there's nothing to look up. And then but we have the search option here. New issue. And that's going to pull back a whole bunch of items, but that's okay. So there you go. You got the status, you got the assigned to, you got the title, all the information. So we can, I named all the same just for demo purposes. It just made it easy. You'd have your list of items that you search in your return of the search, and then you go ahead and select which one you want to select and associate, because this is a single lookup, not a multi lookup, so we only have one option. That's why it's only allowing me to do one. So we could have a multi lookup option if we wanted to, but just selects one of them, hit OK, and pulls it in, and then then we make that association. So that's how you get that lookup list to pop open and appear even when it's over 5,000, bringing back more than 5,000. You have some other options to also like pre-filter the list. If we go back to our NITRO form here and go to edit, you have an option to filter things based on something. So we could have a cascaded lookup where location. Well, what we'd have to have is that this cascade lookup would have to be connected, have to have like we do a category issue type. When you select a category, it gives you a subset of issue types. So you could have a cascade that way. I think if you do multi-line, you could do, or multi-lookup, you can have, this gives you a few more options here. And I think you could even have a way you filter it based on a field. Like let's say it's an assigned to field and you want to filter let's say it's tickets and assets, right? So on your tickets list, you have an assigned requester, and then on your assets, you have an assigned to person. You can filter the assets based on who the requester is, and there is a way to do that. I didn't prep that ahead of this workshop because it just struck me right now, but that is another possibility for filtering your view, and that especially if your related assets are going to be over 5,000, and your individual employees don't necessarily have 5,000 assets, right? So they're going to, if you choose to filter on the requester, it's going to pull back a subset of those assets and gives you another way to filter your lookup. So it gives you a way to do that and manage it from the NITRO Forms perspective. So a couple different options there. Again, you could always do view if you wanted to, but if you wanted to load everything and have all those options available, then there's a couple other ways I just showed you with the searching option is a possibility as well. Now, what about running reports? Okay, so that's another thing that people like to do on large lists, or any list really, is to run reports. And that goes back to what we're doing with the separating out of list views. And it would have to be a list view, not a query, but we could create different list views back on our issue tracker list that we're keying off up here. And you could put multiple views in the same report configuration. So even if individually each view returns fewer than 5,000 items, all told, they could pull back all the items if you wanted to. So if we went to our NITRO reports tool, and let's say we create a new report. Items by status. So you pull up items by status, we got it from our list, and we've got our issued tracker list we're going to pull up here. And now we can select our multiple views. So we're going to create a view for items last 6 months. We'll create a view for items prior to 6 months, and we'll put those multiple views in here. So we can have those different, you can see have multiple views, any number of views, 12, 10, 12, however many you want. And then when we run the preview or run the report, it's going to run everything, based on those views, right? So that's another way you can do it from the reporting perspective. But actually, let's back up for just a second because there is also a list roll-up option. So let me show you that because that's another way that you can see all, in addition to the list view, but you can see all the items from those different views in one actually in one web part using the list roll-up, and then we can use the list roll-up here. So let me show you what that looks like. So first of all, I'm going to go create a new view here and set this to be the ones prior to, the 180 days items prior to 6 months. Okay, create that. Kind of different view creation experience now with Microsoft, so I have to fumble my way around a little bit. Okay, so edit current view. All right, so it's going to be items prior to 6 months. We're going to create our filter, and we're going to do this where date reported in this case is going to be less than or equal to, and today minus 80. Great, saved it. We'll just reuse that. So that's going to pull back everything prior to the 6 months, and then it'll be everything more recently to the 6 months. So we got two different views that we're going to put together. So let's go back to our apps, and we're going to go to list rollup, and we're going to create a new list rollup, and we'll just do issue tracker items. And then there's a whole bunch of settings here. I won't go through this in great detail, but there's a lot you can do here. If you have any questions about it, certainly let me know. So because we're pulling back a lot of items, maybe we want to delay the load. Do user initiated. I'll show you what that looks like. We're not going to enable automatic refresh. We'll fix the row height. We'll show grid lines, row alternating color, kind of things I like to do. Really just the UI. What is this web part going to look like when it gets onto a page? And then we can do our columns. So now we're basically creating columns for the data to come into, right? So we have to create a title field, and that's going to be a text field, and with do 50, no, 20. I don't know why it's 0. So we can do text. We'll do title field. We'll do a status field, which is also going to be a text field. And we can play around with these and make it look nicer if we need to, and assign to. And so what we're doing, we're just going to pick a few things here and add them to our list view rollup. So now you can have multiple items. Yeah, you could have as many as you want. We could do another one for let's do that date reported field. So we can see that. So date. Okay. I think if I leave it as 0, the width, it's just going to auto select, but I'm just going to set it as 20 for now. See what that looks like. I like to live dangerously. I just like to do things on the fly, even if they don't work. It's just fun to try it. So we're going to do our issue tracker list. Again, like the list view, we could do a list view, our Crocanian list view web part, we could do a list view or a query. And we're going to enter our two views here. So we're going to do this one first, items last 6 months. And we're going to map our columns. So title is going to be title. And then, oops, not the color setting, mapping. Let's go down, status is going to be status. You can see I just double click it, makes it easy. Assign to is going to be assigned to, so scroll up and pull the assign to in there, double click it, adds it right in there. And then we're going to choose date reported. So you don't have to worry too much about that syntax, just double click the field you want to add into your list view rollup and it's good to go. So we're going to add those settings in there. Now we've got that one list view. Typically, this would be used for multiple lists, but in this case, we're using it for the same one. And we can do that. Let's see, do that, cancel, data, add. Wait, did I do status? I guess I did do status, okay. Okay, anyway. So we do our columns again. Yeah, okay. I don't know why I scrolled down a little bit, but here we go. So we're going to choose our issue tracker list again, and we're going to choose the prior to 6 months, the other one. And now we're going to do our mapping, same thing. Do title, status, assign to, and date reported. Okay, add. So now you got those two different views going to be in the same list view web part. Now there are some other settings there we could play around with as far as the advanced, having different options available. Extended settings we're not going to worry too much about, but we can enable the toolbar and show the export to Excel and all those buttons, which is actually really important, this export to Excel button. You're going to see this in a couple places in NITRO if you haven't already. List search can have export to Excel that allows you to export whatever you've searched. And it just gives you a better way to do the export to Excel, because when you're doing it from SharePoint natively, it's going to pick whatever's in the view, which is probably fine for a lot of cases, but there might be some other cases where you just want to get, I want to filter this on, here are all the tickets that are assigned to John Smith. I just want to pull back the tickets, export the tickets that are assigned to John Smith. Natively in SharePoint, you'd have to go and create a view that's filtering the ticket list on John Smith. But here, with the especially with the list search, you can go and search your tickets, and that search results will show all the tickets from John Smith because you've set up the filters and whatnot. And that export to Excel will just pull back those items for John Smith. Anyway, just quick aside, export to Excel, I just think it's a neat feature and kind of a good way to do things. Anyway, so I'm gonna save settings. If you have any questions on that, pop them into the box. List rollup, so we got our list rollup definition. So same thing we did with the list view. So if you're in Classic, you have the option right on that web part itself to go and add it to a page. You just have to select which page you want to add it to. Modern, we're going to go ahead and go directly to the page itself. Hit the edit button once it comes up. All right, there we go. Wasn't letting me edit right away. Edit this. All right, it's working. Page for editing. Okay. Probably because there's so many items being pulled back here, it tends to impact the performance. That is one of the things you'll notice is that as the list grows, performance does degrade slightly. That's why we put some of these things in place to help improve the performance, especially with the delaying load of items, or even the user initiated, which you'll see hopefully eventually. Here we go. All right, there it is. And you pull up list roll up. Edit that web part once it lets me. All right, come on. This is a little bit of a delay here. Wait. So yeah, you'll see it definitely having a larger list does impact things a little bit as far as loading times, and that's where like I said, we put some of those things in place where we can delay the load, we can have it be user initiated so that you're not waiting for it. I don't know if I can come in here now and do this. Let me actually come back over here, and this might improve things. So let me show you this. So go to list view. I'm going to edit that list view web part. And I'm going to set this one to be user initiated as well. Let's see, mobile mode, list view grid. All right, there we go. Delay loading, I'm gonna have it be user initiated, so it's not actually gonna load those items until I click on it. And that should, in theory, work here. So if I refresh this, Yeah, see now it's not going to load anything, and look, everything's a lot snappier because now we're not going to load any of those items until we click on it. So that gives you another way to kind of improve performance. It'll load the page quickly. If you need to see that list, go ahead and click on it. If you don't, then you don't have to worry about it. But this, anyway, so we're going to continue to add our list roll up. Let's do issue tracker spelled correctly and republish. So again, this one also should have that user initiated option, right? So it's not going to load anything until I go and click on it. You can see with that enabled, it actually loads pretty quickly. Do refresh, takes a little, not even that long, less than a second to pop up. Whereas if I had that load everything, it could take a little bit longer and prevent you from doing other things on the page, which can be obviously frustrating for yourselves and your users. Of course, I helpfully named them the exact same thing, but I know that I put the list roll up on top. That's okay. All right, click the load items. And that's going to do it. So that's going to load your items, and you're going to see that's coming from where I hit the 20. I think if I just left it as 0, it would it would auto set the size. But you can kind of drag around. You can play around with the settings until you get it right. But essentially, now you've got all your items loaded here and showing 5 items per page, which helps with performance because you're only loading a few items at a time. Even if you're loading 20 items, that's not going to impact too much. You can just load 20 items at a time. You can see it's across 10 different pages of items, and or more than that, really. 10 and 10, 200 items. And it should be pulling back a lot more than that. So I'll have to check into that. But it's just another way to kind of separate out your, once you get the separation of the list views, I should say, you can put them together back together into a list view web part. And then another option you have here, and this could tie back into the list roll up as well, is if you wanted to use our archival feature, which comes into play a lot of times with our ticketing solution. You have the need to archive tickets. And so what you'll do is set up an archival process in our NITRO Workflows. So if you go to Workflows, and you know what, we already have this set up in one of our demo sites. So I'll just going to open that one. So just bear with me a second and go to our help desk. And let's go to application administration. And I'll go to net apps and workflows. Okay. All right. Okay, so we're gonna go to this new page. All right, perfect. And so on the tickets list, and I'll have to see which one it is. There's going to be multiple ones. I'm going to do this. You can actually drag a column header up and have your fields filter, your workflows filter based on the list, which is pretty nice. And we're going to look at tickets. Send adaptive card. Archive tickets using schedule query. Here it is, bottom one. So it's a schedule query workflow. It's going to be in legacy mode, and a lot of these will be in designer mode eventually. But essentially what we're saying here is every day in the morning at hour 7, so this is kind of a 24-hour clock we're looking at here, and that's based on hour 7 based on your regional time settings. So whatever it is, 7 p.m., 7 a.m., depending on what your settings are. We're going to use this, look at every ticket that has a status of closed, and where the close date is less than or equal to, I guess, today minus, it's really going to be today minus 365. So kind of another way to do that. That's probably why my list view query wasn't working. I think if I used this in there, it would have worked. But you have this offset days kind of syntax where you can put in there negative 365. So it's going to look back 365, anything closed more than 365 days ago because it's less than or equal to. And then it's going to, anything that it sees, it's going to run this action. So it's going to, we have associated items here, so it's a little more complicated, but we, look at any related change requests and move them over, and update IDs and change requests. But then ultimately it's this move item action that's taking the cake here. It's going to take your tickets list and move it to someplace else, in which case we've created an archive tickets list. And one thing to make sure of is that the archive tickets list has all the same columns. There's a really easy way to do that, and I'll show you in just a minute. But we also have these mappings of any associated columns, right? So if you don't have any associated columns, you don't have to worry about it. But if you're doing, like, you're trying to archive projects and you have tasks, you might want to you'll want to consider this, because what's going to happen is once the project is moved to the archive list or the tickets moved to the archive list, that ID is no longer valid for those associated items. So those either are going to become orphaned, or, well, yeah, they'll just become orphaned essentially, unless we move them as well. So that's what we're doing here with our move item action, is we've taken that into consideration, and we're also moving those associated lists along with it. Now, of course, that also means we're going to have corresponding archive lists for those, which, again, not a big deal. I'll show you what that does. So you set that up, fairly simple, fairly straightforward. Say move my tickets to archive tickets after a year of being closed. Hopefully that gets you under the threshold, because really what it's doing is it's taking the item, copying it over to the archive tickets list, and then deleting the original. So you're not going to have that original in the tickets list anymore, or whatever list you're archiving from. It's going to disappear. It will be deleted, but it will exist, and if it's copied over into the archive list. So still have it, data's still there, just moved over to a different place. And so that's going to be the case for these associated lists as well. They will be moved over and attached to that archived and deleted. The new archived ticket becomes the new relation between the associated tasks and the ticket. Anyway, that's how we're doing it. If you wanted to archive your own, you could set up something similar. But to set this up, before you start this, really, you want to go back to your list, and I'll show you on the, I'll just go to site contents. And any site, any SharePoint site, wherever you are, if you go to site contents, you can go to new, you can go to list. And this is going to be true with the modern UI and 365 for on-premises and classic UI. It's going to be a slightly different, a little more onerous of a process, I guess you could say, where you want to basically take the list template and then create a new list from that list template. This is essentially doing that, but just a little easier way to do it. And you basically just take your listing on copy, and I'm going to do it over on my NITRO workshops. Where am I? NITRO workshops. Let me go here. Go to site contents. So I actually will create that archive issue tracker list from existing list. And so we select which one we want. Issue tracker. Next. Yep, of course there exists. I know there exists. Thank you for letting me know. All right, archive issue tracker. And I'm just going to capitalize that T because I want to do that. And create. So what this should do, in theory, I believe it will, is create all the columns. Basically, it takes that template. So rather than creating a template, which you can do through list settings and downloading it to your local computer, and then uploading it to the site template gallery in site settings, and then creating it from the classic mode, that new list from the classic mode, which is also possible. This just gives you a really quick way to do it. Just click, 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 boom, done. Now you have your archived issue tracker. We can go create that NITRO workflow, which is going to move everything over to the issue tracker, and the archive issue tracker based on some date, like maybe a year ago, maybe 6 months ago, whatever it is. So that's how that works. And that's the archiving, list rollup, running reports, list view web part. I think I covered everything I wanted to cover. There was a question that popped into the box, and if there's any more, feel free to pop them in there. Associated items stuck with views only. We'll pull back items if view is over 5K. I believe it actually will. Usually, because SharePoint actually has a unique exception. It has an exception for the all items view. And you'll notice if I go back to our issue tracker here, and this will be true on the associated items as well, to help answer that question. If you use the all items view on your associated column, it will work, even if it's pulling back 5,000 items, because you have indexing turned on. So if you turn on your indexing, and you'll see when you first joined this webinar and we're looking at this, this view was not, you couldn't see anything because it was like, yeah, it was over the threshold. But as soon as I put on that indexing, it allowed it to come up. So that's going to be the same case with the NITRO forms and associated columns. If you have an associated column looking at all items from a list like this one, where it's over 5,000, then you're going to create indexing on it. And once you do the indexing, it will fix the issue, any error issue you might see. So if you're running into that, create an index on your list. And that's really the key here, kind of the underlying thing we first talked about. Creating those indices on your list is going to give you a lot of options for flexibility and workarounds for managing your large lists. So you can create your different views based on indexing. You can create your, the associated items column will work on indexing. So that's really going to drive a lot of what you can do with a large list, is making sure that index is turned on. All right, managed to take up 47 minutes. That's good. All right, if there's any other questions, feel free to pop them in there. Yeah, now is the time. Otherwise, we got a few, I think we're taking a little bit of a break with the workshops. We're going to kind of take a summer hiatus, maybe talk about, I think we're discussing doing an email manager workshop maybe later in maybe early August or something, but we're really going to have like one, just maybe only one or more of these before September. But yeah, if you have any questions, or actually really, if you guys have any suggestions on topics you'd like to cover in these workshops that aren't covered in our manual, that aren't covered in videos we already have, we welcome those suggestions. Please let us know if there's anything you would like us to cover in detail that we haven't already. We're happy to do that. And even if it's a simple feature, we just need to dig into it in depth, or a more complex feature, we can dig into that in depth. So there's definitely some things we can talk about. But this is for you guys. This is for you guys to use Nitro and get the most out of it. So if you will have anything you want to discuss or talk about or have a workshop on, let us know. We can have one-on-one sessions. We can have we can put it as a topic. Up to you. Or yeah, we'll figure that out, and just let us know. But otherwise, I appreciate everyone. Jim, I hope I answered your question about the associated columns. If not, let me know. And otherwise, I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope you're all having a good summer so far. So thanks again for joining, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.